Hi and welcome back to MDriven, and in this session we're going to talk about how to reverse a database to a model and how to use that to refine the model and make sense of the data, and then later on actually make a small UI to show this data. First, I want to tell you that there's ample of information on the wiki about these things, so it's not only what I'm telling you here today, and there are also older videos on this subject and they are still good. But you can read about how these things that I describe actually work. So go check that out whenever you're in trouble. First, we will need an example database to actually reverse to get going. And initially I thought that we should use the Northwind database, which is an example database from Microsoft. But then I found that they had another one called Adventureworks, and that looked a bit more fun. So I took that instead, just downloading it and then downloading a backup file and restoring that backup into my SQL Server software. And if you don't have it, you should know that it's easy to get that locally by downloading from Microsoft the totally free SQL Server Developer Edition. So that's the one I have actually, and that works just fine. So just restoring that database, and after that I can see in the database that we have tables, and I can also see that those tables contain data, so that's good. So now we have it. Now we want to reverse it, and in order to reverse it I will download the MDriven designer from MDriven.net, and of course we also have the extension for Visual Studio 2022, which we call the MDriven framework, and that's equally good to do this that I'm going to show you today, but it's easier for me to show it in the MDriven designer, so I'm going to show it there today. And the designer comes up, and I'm going to start a new model, and then I'm going to save that model under a name that I remember, so why not call it Adventureworks. And then I'm going to look around in the menus to actually find the reverse database to model option under functions. So going there, I see that I need a by the way, there's a database option up here, so you can there's a couple of database options that you can reverse from, MySQL, etc. And if you have needs, ask us, because it's easy for us to add more. But then we need a connection string to actually connect to the database. And if you're in a real setting at a customer site, you will need to ask someone what the connection string should be. And of course you would also need to have access to this database. So that could be a hurdle for you, but usually if you're doing work, you would want to start with a backup of the production database to attack that one to see what you can do from that. And once you have solved all the problems, you can simply connect that to your production database at a later date. So finding out a connection string is never particularly straightforward. I always Google it. I'm just going to paste in the result in this notepad. So I'm searching for connection strings, and this is the site that pops up, and I'm going to just copy one of the connection string, and then I see that my SQL Server is actually called HK 2022 dev fine, and the database is Adventureworks 2024. I gave it that name prior to restoring the backup. and then I know what to paste in the different parts in the connection string. But still it says that the certificate chain was not trusted, and also we have quite a lot of information on the wiki that particularly this problem which popped up after some last year sometime. So I'm gonna head over to the wiki to see if I can spot the needed change there. So SQL not trusted, and what's missing is the trust service certificate true. So I'm gonna take that one and append that to the connection string. And once the connection string is fairly complete, I just press Analyze DB, and I get some feedback from the system, in this case that the document node unable to cast types is DB null to system type. So there are missing types apparently, that when we reversed it we didn't get information that we could make sense of, and that's fine. That we can fix those things later if we need fix them. I'm just going to take a screenshot of them now to keep if I want to look at them a little bit later. What we get is all the tables that were discovered in the database in this long list, and we can use this reverse worker button to actually inspect the schema a bit more. These are all the columns that we have found in the database. You can see the list is quite long, and this actually shows us where we have a foreign key, and that will constitute associations between tables in our model. So and that's fairly easy to see how that should work. But and you can do changes here if you want to add additional keys that the reverse logic has missed. But if you're happy, we will just press go and get this warning that if you had any information from before, it will be lost. But that's fine because we didn't. And we get some more warnings here about different types that we feel are hard to grasp, and that's also fine for now. Types we not sure on all these types, but if there are issues we will fall back to string, and we will be able to fix these as we go along and as we need. So I'm gonna take a screenshot of this as well, just to see if I need it a little bit later. Good. And so back in the MDriven designer, I can now see that I've got under the package where I did the reversing, I get the namespace packages and the classes within those. So now it's time to start to make sense, and I can this blank surface is a diagram. It's in this case diagram 1, and I simply drag the classes available to me from this repository, which will contain all the things in the model, onto the diagram, which contains a select perspective of classes that you feel that you want to see together. So as I do this, associations will pop up if they are available. And also in MDriven we have this thing we call auto diagrams to help you see everything. You just double click a class, and then we can see all the associations available in the repository, not only in the diagram. So this covers everything, and that will help you to feel certain that you don't miss things out. So this is a good source to see a couple of only one step from the center class and all associations from that and association names, etc. So maybe that will help you to make sense, but if it doesn't, you should start to do diagrams and drag on more classes. Whenever I save, I get the error checking kicks in, and I see that I have 2 errors: spatial location on address. So, oh, it's missing type altogether. It only says spatial location : and no type. And that's probably something we should fix. So let's head over to the database to see what spatial location on address actually is. Yeah, that's the one that I have on screen already. And spatial location seems like some byte array. And so I can head back and give that a type. And for us, a byte array is represented by a blob, which is a common name in databases called short for binary large object. So I'm just gonna pick blob from this list, and then one error gone, and I have another error, organizational node, and same there, no type. So heading over to the database to see organizational node on employee, and that too seems like some kind of binary data. I don't understand it at this point, but I will go with blob here as well. So heading back and setting blob on that one, and then saving again, and my errors warnings are gone. That's a good thing. As you see here, we don't need to have blob. We can also have byte array, but we will probably want to work with this photo thing in a short while. So I'm coming back to that. So I'm going to do a new diagram. You can have as many diagrams as you want. And the diagram is just a perspective. It's not everything in the repository. It's just a few things that you feel make sense, and it could be a nice diagram that you keep forever, or it can be a scratch pad that you just use for the day or something like that. It's up to you. Everything goes. And I simply drag on classes onto the blank surface, and I can work with colors to get if I want to use the colors to attribute some meaning, or if I just want to use the colors that look nice. That's up to me. And there's also functions to actually follow the model and find things, to introduce all non-place neighbors, for example. That will give me a starting point, what relates to product, all of these things, and then I can sort of try to make sense of those. Run a layout algorithm to help me sort these a bit on screen. Moving things around to see if I can understand what it all means. And of course I can do this double click on a specific class to go into the auto diagrams at any point to see if there's something more interesting that I missed that I should drag on to the diagram, or if I'm fine. So let's call this diagram product diagram. Yeah. And then I can just make a copy of this diagram and paste it in and call this diagram for product construction. And switching to that diagram, you see here which diagram is shown. That diagram looks exactly the same. But what I can do now is to remove things that I don't feel are related to product construction. Remove from diagram. That just removes from the diagram but keeps the class in the repository. Delete, however, would delete from the repository. So be careful with delete unless you want to delete. Remove is much better. So cleaning up the diagram to get me more specific what a product construction would entail, and giving them the same colors just because I feel they are related, and checking if I'm missing something obvious. I think I'm fine. So at this point I would like to introduce you to MDriven server and MDriven turnkey. So even if they are called servers and server software, we can actually quite easily run them locally for testing purposes. Just adding a local server pair and naming that to something that I remember. Why not Adventureworks 2024? I then make sure that I download the latest versions of these softwares onto my machine, and when I've done that I simply press refresh install on this slot here, and that moves the downloaded things into this slot, and I can open this folder here to see what actually happened on disk, and that was that there were 2 folders, and if I open one of them it contains a .NET Core application that can run standalone, and it can be a bit of a trouble to actually start them the first thing because there's some issue with the file locks, but I'm refreshing another slot as well, and then the file locks sort of move and I can start the servers. And this is how they look. They run on 2 different ports on your local host. And I can simply take that port and paste it into a web browser to see how the server looks. And in the MDriven server will always, when you download it like this, will always have login A and also password 123456. So you get past that real quick. And of course you will change that in production site. I don't need to tell you that. The MDriven server can actually hold our model and should be connected to our database. But since we might not actually own the database, maybe we will, and we will come to that in a little bit. But suppose that you just want to connect to an existing database and you shouldn't touch it in any way. Then we need to check this box to say that it's reversed, and because otherwise the first model that we upload to the MDriven server will try to recreate the database from the model, and that's not at all what we want at this point. We already have data in our database, so we want to instruct the MDriven server that this is a reversed scenario. So I'm checking that one. And the other thing that I want to change, I can give the server a name. And why not something that I will remember? Adventureworks. And let's see, I'm gonna change the connection type from the built-in admin server that actually comes with the install, just starts, and that's good, but that's where this data, the name for this, etc. lives. But I want to change this to SQL Server and also enter the connection string to our restored database here. So this connection string is the connection string I saved over here at the in the notepad. Having done that, I can save that information, and it's reversed. Good. So it's located at localhost 5016, and that's also the information here. And here's a link directly to that server if I want to use it. But the current server that we are connected to, if I were to push upload model, is none at this point. What I can do is, since I'm standing at the slot Adventureworks 2024, I can say use the above server. So this value will be the correct value here. If I want to set this manually, I can just go to this tab, Active MDriven Server, and fill in the address and the passwords, etc. But let's just push this button here, and then it's localhost 5016. And now I just want to, I can call on the server to see what it says. It says never started. So it says that it didn't have a model. Now I can upload the model that we have been working with, all the class information. And I can push this to get the state, what happened when I uploaded this model. And then it says that, well, this is derived, so we won't do anything with it. If it hadn't been derived, it would have said new model database recreated, and then you're smoked pretty much, because then you don't have any data left in it. That's the whole point with reversing, usually. So that's good sign. What we can do now is refresh here and see that we have a model available for us in the MDriven server. So what does that mean? Well, it means that we can use the built-in functions to watch the data. We can see that these are the tables or classes available in the MDriven server, and we can bring up a search form for each of these each of the classes within the model. And it might be that we need to restart the server after the first upload. It seems like it didn't find the data, so I'm just going to restart it. And when I restart this, it will probably just close it, and I'm going to have to go back to this form and say start servers again. And once I've done that, it should be pop up, and I can refresh this one. Now I will try this thing again. So address, search box, and I can see all the addresses available in the database are now brought in as objects for the MDriven server. So that's good. That's a sign that things work as expected. So another way to look at data not using the MDriven server is to actually use the MDriven Designer debugger. So this is also available in the version for Visual Studio, of course. It's just a play button here, And then there's quite a lot of options that you can fill in for how you want to fetch data. In our case, we have a SQL server, so we can use that one connection string and the same connection string that we used before. And then we are ready to start the system. We can also we can also use the MDriven server directly, which already has the connection string, and then we only need to tell it the address of the server that we're going to use. And open the debugger, and in the debugger we can do many things, but the easiest things is to just select the class and select the seeker, and now we get a very similar thing to what we saw in the MDriven server, but this is done locally in the MDriven designer client, so we can use this to search for things, and the search boxes can help you filter things already. So if you're searching for 9th Street, then of course it matches also 39th Street. So if we add 39, we get all the 39 streets, and we can double click to get one single address, and in this we can follow associations and open in this case the state province and see all the attributes of that. So this is a good way to rumble around in your data. And we can also go to the multi-links to see all the addresses in the state, the province of Oregon, and there are quite many. So that could be useful for some cases. We can just mention that since we colored the class product green, these windows will also show up as green because they follow. So if you make use of color to signal a specific type, it might help you to get that definition traveling along, so that you can relate to data also by color, if that is something that appeals to you. So as I alluded to before, we might not actually own the database. We may be just allowed to see it, but if we own it, we could consider making model-driven changes to the data, and in order to do that, since a change never comes alone, there are always multiple changes once you start to change. We will need to have the ability to find the differences between the current model that drives the database, that has defined the database, and the current model that you have versus the model that's currently created the database. And there may be a difference, and that difference should create SQL alter scripts. And in order to hold all that, we actually want to have a few administrative tables available in the database. So what we're going to do is to hook up with the SQL server and the connection string directly, and then I'm going to use this evolve database. The connection string was valid. Save the script. What that tries to do is to actually save the whole object relational mapping from this model that we have into a special table in the database. And since we don't have that table, actually what happened when I did the save script was that the table was created for me. So this is the table, eco overmapping. So once I've done that, if the table wasn't there, it was added for me, and that holds the entire model overmapping, enough for us to do changes at a later date. But to add a lot of brand new things, we want the administrative tables added to our database, and currently that's done manually. We will have this in the wiki on how you find this, and basically it's a description of table names and what they do, what their purpose are, and there are 4 tables here, and we just take the script for each table and create it in our database. After that, we are actually ready to add brand new things to our model. And we can add classes with attributes and associations to things that were there before, for example. And then I press the evolve database. And there are actually 2 ways to go about this. Now that I was connected to SQL directly, I can use this evolve database, but a more natural choice would have been to actually continue with the MDriven server and just go to the cloud dialog and upload to MDriven server. What this says is that what it does and what's about to happen. It's going to add a column to the product, and that's the foreign key that will point out an association foreign key to adding my own things. And adding my own things is a table that also will need to be added. And here's the SQL script for doing all that, but I don't really need to bother about that. And what I see here is the insert into eco tables table name. So whenever there's a new table, it will be added to this administrative table that we added, and also the eco type, the discriminator, to know what if there are multiple clauses in one table, we need to discern between the different types. And I can execute that. And see that the database updated successfully. And if I refresh this, and I see that I have my own table here and the attributes within. Good. And of course, we are free to delete things as well, and the evolve mechanism should handle it. Now I'm not just doing remove, but actual delete. And if I then press the evolve database once more, what happened there was actually that I got an SQL error due to an index that I was not allowed to, or the logic wasn't allowed to remove, and or didn't know to remove. But since we own it, we can handle this with the SQL Server directly. This is not the normal thing when you have a strictly model database, but it may occur initially when you are working with a reverse database, because then there was a lot of indices that we don't really know about. So it says here that this is the name of the index and this is on this table. So then I simply need to look that up and fix it. There it is. And it's just a question of pressing delete on that one. Good. And then when I try again, now I do it from the MDriven server perspective, it says what it did and what will happen with the SQL. Good. So having a reverse database, there's a lot of things coming in, but maybe we want to give more details, like if a byte array really is an image. That was the thing that I alluded to before, that the product photo, we probably want to work with that. So the product photo here is a thumbnail photo of type byte. I'm going to switch that to blob and tell you why in a second. Yeah, I can switch it over here as well. And then I get this blob type option. That's good because that's extra information for us to work with in the model. And we want to say that it's an image, because then our UI will know what to make of this byte array. And of course we have the same thing on the large photo over here. So I'm doing the same thing on that. And that means if I run this debugger on this photo data, the debugger forms recognize that this is not really just a byte array, it's a photo, and shows that photo for me. Good. So now we have come to the point where we want to create a user interface and interact with your data the way you want. So this is not really part of the reverse engineering thing. It's the normal work. So I'm gonna divide this up in another video. So thank you very much for following along this far. And then there's another video that starts off at this point. Thank you.